Oh, I love Fridays. What a great day. What a great day. It's always a great day. I mean, like, everybody loves Fridays. It doesn't make me unique. It's not like, oh, this is a classic, like, move that people do that I hate. I'll be like, I'm the kind of person, I just really like Fridays. I love when people say that. I'm the kind of person, I just hate hospitals. Yeah, because of all those people who just love being in hospitals. So I almost said that I almost became one of those people who said, me, I just love Fridays. Yeah, I mean, most people do. Most people like the end of the week. Most people like the Morning Pitt Mailbag. Oh, wait, did I just say that? Yeah. I mean, I like Fridays for a lot of reasons. I like it because it's the end of the week and everything that comes with that. There's a certain kind of energy to Friday, but I really like it because of the Morning Pitt Mailbag. This is my favorite episode of the Morning Pitt to do every week, unless we've got something really cool or exciting to talk about. Certainly those, Morning Pitt episodes after a big commitment weekend those are always fun to do because we have a lot to discuss. But the mailbag is pretty high up there on the list. Consistently, week after week, it's the best, the most fun episode. I don't know if it's the best or the one that people enjoy listening to the most, but it's the most fun to put together. It's the one I enjoy doing the most. And here we are again. And we got some great questions this week. I'm going to try to get through every question because there's like a question that's near the end. I don't know how many questions we got, 6, 7, or 8 or something like that. And one of the last questions is one I really want to answer because I think it's really interesting. And so that means I've got to get through the first 5 or 6 questions to get there. I don't want to skip ahead or bounce around. Got to get them all. Want to try and get through all of them. So let's jump into it. Let's answer your questions from the Panther-Lair.com message boards in the Morning Pitt Mailbag right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. All right, great questions this week, I should say. And as always, our questions for the Morning Pitt Mailbag. Wow, really fired up by all that music there. The little intro that I can't even get my words right. As always, the questions for the Morning Pitt Mailbag come from the Between Fifth and Forbes message board at Panther-Lair.com. If you're a Panther-Lair.com subscriber, you can join and ask questions for the Morning Pitt Mailbag every Tuesday or Wednesday. We put up a thread asking for questions. And lots of people always chime in. Some of the usual suspects every week. Sometimes we get new people coming in with questions. But either way, that's how we get the questions for these Morning Pitt mailbags. And we always look forward to it. So thanks to everybody who submitted questions on the message boards at Panther-Lair.com. If you want to be part of the Morning Pitt mailbag, in addition to getting the best source of Pitt sports news online, the place to do it is Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. for all of your Pitt sports news. And, of course, our video channel right here, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. It's a place to get these daily Morning Pitt videos, our weekly live stream like we did on Wednesday night with Jim Hammett. That was a lot of fun. We sat around and talked about Bub Carrington and the NBA draft for a full hour, 8:30 to 9:30, and then the minute we stopped, Bub Carrington got drafted. The timing. I was like, come on, really want this to happen during the show. We can talk about it live. It's going to be a lot of fun. Nope. Waited until almost like the minute it ended. I mean, it was almost exactly when we ended on Wednesday night that the Bub Carrington pick was announced. Bub going to the Wizards, good for him. Blake Hinson went undrafted, but he signed with the Lakers, good for him. Hopefully both of those guys have long, successful careers. We'll certainly be keeping an eye on them and monitoring their progress. But anyway, like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and that would make me very happy. Let's jump into the mailbag questions. Smenges starts us off, says the O-linemen and the recruits love Dave Borbley, and the recruits and best returning guys didn't bolt when he was replaced with Jeremy Darveau. Is it likely that he's actually as good or even an upgrade over Borbley? What's your read on Darveau for 2024? So Jeremy Darveau, the offensive line coach who came to Pitt from Western Carolina, obviously having the connection with Cade Bell, has become a bit of a lightning rod on the message boards. Probably due to the fact that Pitt's offensive line recruits don't have any other power conference offers. I think Akram El-Nagmi claimed who do you say he had? Virginia was the only other power conference offer among the 3 commitments that Pitt has gotten so far. Like I'm firmly reserving judgment on all of these new assistant coaches right now. I don't know. I don't have much to make of them. Okay? And I mean, you hear little things here and there, but it's not enough that I'm going to form a real solid opinion about these coaches as coaches or recruiters. You know what I mean? Like in any facet of their job. I mean, you hear, like, again, you hear anecdotally, you hear secondhand stories, thirdhand stories, or whatever, but none of it is strong enough, good or bad, to compel me to feel a certain kind of way about these guys. And there's certainly not enough evidence in the recruiting or on the field to feel a certain kind of way about these guys. Now, you might say, well, sure, but they've got 18 commitments, and a bunch of those are offensive players. 3 of them are offensive linemen. 4 of them are receivers. 2 are running backs. Surely we can judge those guys, Jeremy Darvo and J.J. Laster and Lindsey Lamar. Surely we can judge those guys on how they were recruited thus far, and we can to a certain extent. But one thing that we've talked about a number of times and we'll continue talking about is that, these guys just started as part of an entire offensive overhaul, an entire overhaul of the offensive coaching staff. And I'm not going to use this as giving them a full a full pass on everything. I'm not going to rationalize away everything that happens in recruiting with this class, but they just got here and the whole staff was rebuilt. If there was any kind of continuity on the offensive coaching staff, I think you might see better results in terms of the recruiting battles that they were winning. But these guys are coming in pretty much and starting from zero with the recruits that they're going after. Now, maybe some of the defensive coaches have, geographic areas where they're recruiting some of these offensive skill guys, and that's helping Pitt land some of them or helping them in the efforts, but they're starting from zero. And there's no continuity with the offensive coaching staff. And so I think you have to, like, I'm at least, as in terms of evaluating these guys as recruiters, I'm going to wait a year and see how they do in that next year's recruiting class, in the 2026 recruiting class, when they've had that full year to build the relationships, when they've got a full year of on-field product to point to. Ideally, it's good, and they can sell it on the recruiting trail next year. But I think we'll get a better sense of how they are as recruiters then. It's like there's another question at some point in this, in the mailbag about ranking all of the assistant coaches as recruiters. And our good friend, the Whippeal Insider, did this on the message boards a couple days ago. So I actually defer to him on that. If you want to see what he said, go check it out. It's on the premium message board. But for me, and I'll say this again in a couple of minutes when we get to that question, if I'm going to rank the assistant coaches as recruiters, I'm very much TBD on the new guys, on Cade Bell, Jacob Bernowski, Jeremy Darvo, Lindsey Lamar, and J.J. Laster. There's reputation, and that's it. And that's all we have to go on with those guys thus far, because there's just not enough evidence to base it on. And that goes for Darvo. No, he didn't really lose anybody. They lost, two offensive linemen to the transfer portal. Dorian Ford and Trey Anderson. I forgot. I think Ford went in after spring camp. Anderson, I think, was gone in December. They didn't lose a Dayon Hayes, Samuel Kunlola, Solomon DeShields, Bengali Kamara type as far as a returning starter and a guy projected to start again. They didn't lose one of those guys. Branson Taylor is still here. Ryan Baer is still here. Terrence Moore is still here. BJ Williams is still, all those guys are still here. And so they met Darvo and felt okay with it. They went through spring camp with him and felt okay with it. So, in this case, the absence of evidence is evidence of absence, right? Nobody left, so they're sort of tacitly endorsing him. Because, guys like Taylor and Bear could have gone somewhere. Probably Moore and Williams, too, to be quite honest. I'm sure they could have found other options if they had gone into the transfer portal, but they obviously felt comfortable with Darvo and stuck around. So that's all I really have to go on at this point with evaluating Jeremy Darvo. Jay Lazinger says, to your knowledge, given how guys transfer in and out all the time, has the recruiting pitch changed at all? I'm mostly wondering if they are pushing on recruits to stay and if they aren't looking for guys that will transfer out if they don't play right away. Well, I think you're always going through the recruiting process, and it's when you first start talking to these kids. It's when you go to their high schools in May. It's when you bring them in for official visits in June. It's when you go visit them in their homes, later in the recruiting process. The whole time you're trying to evaluate not just how they are as players. You can find that out on film, but evaluate the cultural fit, the locker room fit. Is this a player who's going to have loyalty? And I've heard from coaches over the years that some of the guys they miss on, the fact that they missed on him kind of tells them that maybe that loyalty wouldn't have been there. Not every recruit they miss on, but if there were recruits who maybe told the coaches they were going to come, and maybe didn't make it public, so it wasn't really a decommitment. But if there were recruits who made it pretty clear to the coaches that they were going to go to Pitt and they end up going to another school, I think the coaches have sort of felt like they dodged a bullet a little bit. That's probably going to be the guy. If he goes back on his word within a matter of weeks or months or whatever it is, as a high school senior, decommitting or sort of backing off of a silent commitment or whatever it may be, that if that's what he would do then he's probably going to be the guy who, if he doesn't get playing time, is going to end up in the transfer portal. I think they feel like there are some personality quirks that'll carry over, some cultural things, or things just about a player and who he is, that if that's how they handle it in the recruiting process, that's how they're going to handle it when they get to college. And so, but I don't think that part of the pitch has changed. I don't think the pitch has changed at all. I think that that's always been part of the evaluation process. More than recruiting pitch, it's an evaluation piece. And I think that's still the case now. Maybe it's a little more heightened. Maybe they're looking even more closely at it. And I'm sure there are different things you could sell sort of adjacent to the transfer portal. If you come here and you stay, we'll develop you. Look at the guys who've been drafted. Look at Mackin-Salves. He came here and he stayed. Carter Warren came here and he stayed. MJ Devonshire ended up coming here a couple years later, stayed for a while. You know what I mean? Like you can sell that the guys who stay will play and succeed and get a chance in the NFL. But I think as far as the cultural fit and evaluating the personality, that's always been part of it. They might look just a little bit closer at it now, but I'm not sure it's a really change in the pitch. Hoya Panther says, your discussion of the position group's evolution over the last few years, such as the running backs and receivers this week, got me thinking. To what extent do you think Pitt has recruited above or below the line by position group relative to what should be their goal, putting a top 25 to 30 team on the field consistently? You've spoken about Pitt not having a true X-receiver, but how many of them are realistic targets for Pitt in any given year, given that 4 to 5-star archetypal NFL athletes aren't usually knocking on our door? Is there an opportunity to schematically moneyball the college game, particularly on offense? Do you think Pitt is doing this or that they should? It seems like Cade Bell is experimenting with speed as a cheat code. Do you think Pitt does this elsewhere in the lineup or should? All right, there's a lot in that question. I'll take the moneyball market inefficiency question, or friend of the program, Pitt Chag, smart guy on the message boards, usually has pretty good thoughts. Had a bit of a hot take the other day and said he loves that they're getting all these small wide receivers and running backs, and he would much rather have them than the big guys. He'll take the small guys with the speed because it's a market inefficiency. Those guys get overlooked because they're 5'9" or 5'10" and not 6'1" or 6'2". Or 6'4", or whatever it may be. And so you can find really good players who can make plays and help you win games by exploiting that sort of blind spot in the market. Maybe that's what they're trying to do. Maybe that's the goal. Like, so if Cade Bell is looking at it and sort of rehashing one of our themes, if Cade Bell is looking at it and saying, I can use the offensive system to get these guys open, so I need to go get the guys who, when we get them open and we get them the ball and they've got space, they can hit the home run. Two parts to it, right? The scheme and the speed. And if you have both, and they're actually both live up to their billing, then all right, that might work. You know what I mean? So maybe that's Cade Bell's plan. And I think to some extent, lower division teams have probably been trying to exploit that for years. I think, yeah, I kind of think there is some truth to that. Is that what Cade Bell is trying to do at Pitt? I don't know. Is it going to work at Pitt? I don't know. We'll find out. To your other question though, of to what extent do I think Pitt has recruited above or below the line by position group relative to what should be the goal, putting a top 25 to 30 team on the field consistently? Look, I agree with most fans who look at it and say Pitt has recruited much better on defense than they have on offense over the last 10 years, that they probably in a lot of years have not recruited well enough on offense. And I would probably go so far as to say that you really have to pick out individuals to identify the success in recruiting on offense. It's Kenny Pickett, Jordan Addison, Izzy Abanikanda, Jared Wayne, some of the offensive linemen. Although I'm writing about the top 5 offensive linemen of the Narduzzi era for tomorrow, and I'm still trying to decide on number 5, but 3 out of the top 4 were not recruited by Pat Narduzzi. I think it was 3 out of the top 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah. And I'm still trying to decide on number 5. I think it'll be a Narduzzi recruit, but as of this morning, and we'll publish this later this morning, I'm still not sure who I'm going to put into that number 5 spot. But you get my point. I think there has been a fall off in offensive recruiting. I don't think the offensive recruiting has been nearly good enough. I think that's a big part of the reason that the years they've struggled, that's why they've struggled. Like, why did they go 5-7 in 2017? Because the quarterback play was bad and the offense was bad. Why did they go 7-7 in 2018? Even though they won the ACC championship, even though they had 2 1,000-yard rushers for the first time in school history, their offense was bad. It wasn't good enough. 2019, the offense was even worse. They fired the offensive coordinator to get a better offense, and they got a worse offense because at least the 2018 offense was good at running the ball. 2019, they weren't even good at that. 2020 was a slight improvement, but it was hard to find. 2021 was obviously a great season. 2022, they went through a major slump, largely keyed by the offense. 2023 was a dumpster fire due to the offense. And all of that is because they haven't recruited well enough. And you can say, well, yeah, I don't think it's about recruiting because it was Phil Dracovic was bad and Christian Bear was bad and Keaton Slovic. Yeah, but they needed all those guys because they haven't recruited well enough on offense. So I think they've been below the line of a top 25 to 30 program. Offensively, they've been below the line. Defensively, they've been fine. They've been great. They've been a top 25 to 30 program, a top 20 to 25 program, maybe a top 15 to 20 program defensively. But the other side has been at times so bad that it has brought the team down. This is what I always say. Like, you look back over 9 years of Pat Narduzzi football at Pitt, there's only 1 year you would point at and say the defense was the weakness of the team. That was 2016. So, above the line, below the line, they've been above the line when it comes to defense, below the line on offense. The special sauce says, how would you rank the assistants based solely off recruiting? So this is where I say it's tricky, right? Because there's 5 guys, the entire offensive side of the ball. I don't know. I think Jacob Bernowski might be pretty good, tight end coach. He got some really good tight end talent to Pitt's prospect camps this summer. It was impressive. I should probably write about it. The tight ends at the prospect camps, the 3 prospect camps they had, or 4, I forgot how many they had. It was as good as it has been, maybe since I've seen in the Narduzzi era at these prospect camps. And Tim Salem used to bring tons of guys in. He never had the talent level that Pitt had at tight end in the prospect camps this year. It was really good. They had some really good guys, like a 4-star guy from 2026, another guy that they ended up offering who's going to be a really good prospect. They had really good tight end talent. So maybe Jacob Bernowski's good out of those 5 new offensive guys. But I just don't know. I do think Corey Sanders is the number 1 guy. I think Archie Collins is really good. I think Ryan Manilak is really good. We'll see what Tim Dowse can do. You talk about new guys, I don't know. Randy Bates, he's active. I think he's active, but I think he's kind of secondary on just about any recruit that he's involved with. But, Corey Sanders is the number 1 guy. We talked a lot about Corey last week. So I don't feel like I need to go down that path too much longer or too much further. But to me, in my own interactions, my own observations, what I've been told, what I hear, I just don't have enough info on those 6 new coaches to really have a strong opinion right now. If I did, I'd just be guessing or trying to stoke the fires or something like that. All right, we're already past the 20-minute mark. Darn it. Not going to get to all the questions I want to get. We'll get one more. Joe Magarac says, Charlie Partridge was widely considered the top assistant football coach under Pat Narduzzi. It was rumored that many other top programs tried to lure him away from Pitt. Everyone, including me, was disappointed when he left Pitt for the NFL. Who could blame him? Several Saturdays ago, you appeared on the Saturday AM Panther radio show with Pat Bostic, and part of the discussion focused on the drop-off of defensive line performance and the recruiting of those positions over the past several years. How much of the drop-off could be attributed to NIL, the transfer portal, and the poor performance of Pitt's offense versus a drop-off of performance by Charlie Partridge and the other defensive coaches? Thanks in advance for your answer. So here's the thing about defensive line, Charlie Partridge, and Pitt's recruiting. Look, Charlie Partridge is a great recruiter. He's done a great job everywhere he's been. He's done a great job recruiting. He brings in defensive linemen and more. He brings in guys from all throughout South Florida. He does a great job, and I think he's a great defensive line coach too. You know, I like Weaver and Jones were All-Americans. Cansey was an All-American. You know, Twyman was an All-American. Like that run, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. I mean, it was a monster run of defensive line. And his recruiting was a big part of why that run came together. I mean, he didn't recruit Weaver and Jones, but he developed those guys. Thing is, when you start looking at some of the recent recruiting classes, 2020, they signed 3 defensive linemen, Samuel Williams, Emmanuel Belgrave, and Dayon Hayes. All 3 are gone. They all transferred. Hayes because he got money from Colorado, Williams and Belgrave because they busted. They weren't good enough. Okay, so that's one recruiting class. 3 guys, and they're all gone. 2021 recruiting class. Naquan Brown, Elliott Donald, Dorian Ford, Nikai Johnson. What have they gotten out of that group so far? Ford moved to the offensive line and transferred. Naquan Brown was here for like a semester and transferred. Johnson has moved from defensive end to defensive tackle. They're hoping he can make an impact this year, and same with Elliott Donald. They're hoping he can make an impact this year. So what have we got? So this is 2 recruiting classes, 7 guys, all right, with some highly touted prospects, and you got some starts out of Dayon Hayes, all right? 2022 recruiting class. Let's bring it forward, okay? Sean Fitzsimmons, Jimmy Scott, Sam Okunlola. I like that class. That's a really good class. Okunlola's already gone. Scott, I think we'll see a lot of playing time this year. Fitzsimmons, I think we'll see a lot of playing time this year. 2023 recruiting class. Okunlola, obviously. Isaiah Neal, that's great. Antonio Kamen, he's already gone. Maverick Grazio, I don't know. I really don't know what his contribution is going to be. So you look over those 4 recruiting classes, 2020, 21, 22, 23, Dayon Hayes contributed, but he's transferred. Sam Okunlola is going to be good, but he transferred. Fitzsimmons, I think, will be good. Who else did I just talk about? Jimmy Scott, I think, is going to play a lot this year, and I think he'll be pretty good. I think Isaiah Neal is going to be great. But you're looking at pretty limited numbers. And you're looking at the fact that they had to go out and get 4 transfers on the defensive line this year. They didn't go out and get 4 transfers on the defensive line because the last 4 years of D-line recruiting has been great. It's a bit of an indictment on the last 4 years of defensive line recruiting. And they lost 3 guys to the portal. Hayes went to the portal, Okunlola went to the portal, and DeAndre Jules, and that hurts. They also had the 3 super seniors who were here forever, and Devin Danielson and David Green and Tyler Bentley, and that they took up a lot of space. They clogged a lot of scholarship spots and limited maybe what they were able to do recruiting wise. I mean, this freshman class, Francis Brew and Sincere Edwards, they look really good, but I don't think it's a stretch, and I don't think it's disrespectful to say that there was some drops and some misses in the defensive line recruiting over the last 4 years, and it's left Pitt a little bit in the lurch that they're in. It's not just the transfer portal. It's not just NIL, although that's part of it. But the transfer portal didn't have anything to do with Naquan Brown and Sam Williams and Emmanuel Belgrave. Transfer portal is not why Nikai Johnson is entering his fourth year and he hasn't really contributed. Why Elliott Donald is entering his fourth year and he hasn't really contributed. Why Dorian Ford has gone 3 years, moved to the offensive line, and is now headed off to, I don't even see where he committed to. Like, that doesn't have anything to do with the transfer portal or NIL. So, or Antonio Cayman already being gone. Transfer. I guess, I mean, let's not include Cayman. I don't really know how good he was actually going to be, what his ceiling really was. But I mean, like, the portal and NIL don't really account for all of those other misses that came before these last couple classes. And so I do think there was a fall off in defensive line recruiting. I think there was a drop. So no, I don't know if that answers your question or not. Let me check the wording of your question specifically. How much of the drop-off could be attributed to NIL, the transfer portal, and the poor performance of Pitt's offense versus a drop-off of performance by Charlie Partridge and the other defensive coaches? I don't think it's been recruited as well. I just think they had some misses. That's what I would say. All right, look, we're already at like 27 minutes here. I couldn't get to those last couple questions that I really wanted to get to, and it was the very next question. So, Brock 45, we're going to get to your question next week. I can't wait to talk about it. We might spend the whole hour, the whole 20 minutes just talking about that one question, but we will get to it next week on the mailbag. Looking forward to it as always. It's been a great week. It's a lot of fun to do these Morning Pitt videos every day, and I really appreciate everybody who watches and tunes in. Had a lot of fun this week, as we always do. Like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel to not miss any of our Pitt video content. And then, enjoy your rest of your Friday. After you like and subscribe, enjoy the rest of your Friday. Have a great weekend, everybody, and we will catch up with you on Monday morning for the Morning Pitt right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.